What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Drowzy. Today we're none other than what actually happens in an autopsy.
I was sitting with the head mortician having a cup of coffee when one of the staff informed us that a new one had come in. I'd already been doing the job for a few weeks, but wasn't prepared for what I was about to see. It turns out that this new one...
A new one. Referring to a corpse as a new one, yeah? That's messed up, bro. That's messed up.
Died in a logging accident. I was pretty sure it wasn't the chainsaw that had done the damage, but the fact that he'd been squashed under a tree. The mortician and I just looked at the body for a while, a sight that hardly looked human anymore. The man's head had pretty much burst, and what was really shocking was that the skin on his face was still kind of in one piece, but not really connected to anything. How could we possibly fix this guy? You're probably wondering how anyone lands a job like that. Well, I guess you're more concerned with the issue of why anyone would want to do this as a job. The answer is pretty simple, and that's just the fact that someone has to do it, and they have to do it well. Sure, I've been queasy in the past when looking at bodies. I've felt sad when what I saw before me were children's bodies. But in the end, we have a job to do, and we're an indispensable service to the people of the USA. I got the job after I saw an opening for a mortician's assistant while I was studying anatomy. And that's how I ended up trying to put back together a man that'd been almost obliterated by a very heavy tree. Before I get into the nitty-gritty, or should I say the gorier aspects of the job, I'd like to get a few things.
So like you need like a psychiatrist for a job like this, like because the amount of things that you see and the amount of trauma that you see within other people that are you know, over time that'll mess with anybody.
Straight first. Don't worry, I'll get around to the most harrowing things I've seen, but you guys need to know the finer details first. Okay, so you, me, your parents, the president, the newborn next door, and every other living person on the planet will eventually die. Check out. Kick the bucket. Give up the ghost. Sorry to tell you that, but it's a fact. As one of my favorite rock bands once said, do you realize that everyone you know someday will die? Let's see who'll get that reference in the comment section. It's very likely that when you expire, an autopsy won't be performed on you by a pathologist. Not many people will have a pathologist open them up and a medical examiner later state the likely cause of death. This happens to very few people, and it's usually because the cause of death is unknown or something looks suspicious. Here's an example. I know a case of an investigative journalist who apparently drowned in a swimming pool while investigating corruption in a very corrupt country. His death was quickly ruled accidental drowning, but when his parents demanded an autopsy, it turned out that part of the guy's tongue was missing and he had a severe subdural hematoma. That's torn blood vessel.
So that would tell you that he's been beaten to death or has suffered trauma. Well, anybody with a brain would definitely think that he did not drown. But yeah, blunt force trauma. Yeah. So it would be ruled as a murder, not a... I don't even know if... drowning is not suicide. I think it's just accident.
On the surface of the brain. He'd actually been beaten to death, then thrown in a pool. As I said, this was in a very corrupt country where the cops are often seen as mafia. Before I get to my mortician stories and how we put bodies back together to make them presentable for family and friends of the deceased, let me quickly tell you what happens during an autopsy. I'll try to keep this short. Let's imagine you've died and your death seems suspicious. Maybe 1 minute you were fine and healthy just watching an episode of the infographic show, and then the next minute you were found dead in your bed. You had no serious medical conditions and there were no obvious signs as to why you died. Okay, so your body is then going to be taken to an examiner's room, and there's a pathologist and his or her assistant, and they're going to work on you. They're going to make what's called a Y incision. That's a Y shape starting from your shoulders that meets at the chest and then goes down to the pubic area. You've likely seen this next part in a horror movie, and this entails cracking the ribs and, for want of a better expression, opening you up. Now your organs are exposed, and the next step...
Imagine being the doctor. I know that you'd be well versed in it already, because this probably wouldn't be your first rodeo, right? But it's, like, I don't know, it'd still mess with you.
To make a series of cuts to sever certain parts of you that are all connected under the hood. That means disconnecting organs attached to the spinal cord, and basically, it's just a lot of snipping around. Once the snipping is done, the pathologist will then remove your organs and you'll just be a shell of your former self. That head of yours will of course still be in tip-top condition, seeing as you were found undamaged on the outside, but the pathologist is gonna want your brain. He's gonna kinda scalp you, cutting from one ear across your forehead to the other ear and around, and that cut's divided in.
That's why when it says like organ donor and this and that, nah, but no, ain't nobody gonna have no organs of mine, anything like that. I just when I die, that is all coming with me. And you may not be able to be buried with your riches or or any worldly possessions, but your organs, that's a decision you can make. So I'm definitely going with all my organs.
2 parts, and those parts of the scalp will be pulled from the skull. Yep, sounds a bit like peeling a fruit. And if you think I shouldn't say that, well, let me tell you that people who've been doing this a very long time are pretty unaffected by what would make most ordinary folks faint or throw up. There was a time I was one of those guys. So that front flap goes over your face and the back flap down toward your neck. Now it's time to get the saw out and cut a cap in the skull, and hey presto, your brain is now exposed. By the way, when that cap comes off, it makes a kind of popping sound. Let's not forget that your brain is connected to the spinal cord, so that connection has to be severed. Once that's done, you can take it out like you would open a rambutan fruit. What's taken out will now be analyzed, and that's not something I'll get into because it's way too technical for today's show, and to be honest, I'm more of a cleanup guy than a pathologist. I can tell you that the organs will be weighed because their weight might point to the cause of death. Your stomach contents will be examined, as will your eye, fluid, bile, urine, and liver tissue. And on top of that, blood tests will be done. How did you die, you might wonder? The report said it was an overdose of information, which is quite common in this day and age. After your organs have been analyzed and the medical examiner said what the cause of death is, those organs could take a number of journeys. They might just be disposed of, or they might be preserved, or they might get put back in you. The problem now is that this mess on the table that looks like a man who has suffered a reverse Viking blood eagle punishment is far from the good-looking fella you used to be. You need to be put back together. We sometimes call this reconstituting the body. When things are back in place, your body will be stitched up with baseball stitches. We call them that because they...
What's that game where you gotta take the organs out or whatever, and then damn, you take the organs out and it like buzzes. Somebody comment down below what it is. I can't think of it right now. Surgeon? No. Well, anyways, run it. I was gonna say Doctor Who. No. That's the game. Operation. I think. Yeah, that's what it is. Oh, okay. Gases. Closed casket. Damn. Raw. Life just be like that sometimes, bro. Anyways, I'll be your boy Drowzy. Like, comment, subscribe. Join the family. We're getting bigger and bigger by the days. Yeah. Turn your post notification bell on, and yeah, then you'll get notifications when I upload. And thank you for running me up. Like, we're 5 for 5 at the moment. So yeah, keep on. And I'm out.